said, my name is Christina. I'm a paralegal at Peters and Peters. I will just share my screen now because I have some slides. So I'll just talk to you a bit about my journey in law, my current role, how I got this role, and just my life as a law student, and give you some tips which I think are a bit helpful. So a bit about my background. So I was born and raised in Greece. I moved to the UK when I was 18 to study law. I was quite determined that that's what I wanted to study because I had a very big interest in criminal law from when I was young. So I did the equivalent of A levels in Greece, and I moved to the UK to study that. I went to the University of York and I did a 3-year law degree, and I'll just talk a bit about that now. So I was quite lucky because my degree was not the traditional law degree where you have to read a lot of pages and get very bored. It was a very interesting degree. We worked a lot within small seminar groups, and our teaching was based on scenarios. So we were given cases, and we would analyze these cases as a group, come up with the important legal questions in them, and try to apply the law that we had read, for example, cases and legislation, to a set of questions that we were given. And that was also our exam format. So that was quite useful because it taught me from then how it is to use and apply the law that you learn to a real life scenario. And that was quite useful for my role whenever I actually had to work on a case and do some legal research. So the one thing I wanted to flag about my degree, and that I would say this is a tip no matter what degree you choose to study, aside from your academic commitments, I found it very useful that I joined a society. I joined the Criminology Society specifically because, as I said, I was quite interested in criminal law. But the reason I would say this is super useful if you go on and study, no matter what you study, is because it will provide you with a lot of responsibilities. So, for example, I was a secretary in this, and it taught me how to balance my academic commitments alongside with those of the society. And it's a very good test. It's a very good opportunity to get early on experience on how to collaborate with other people, how to set aside and prioritize your tasks. And it's also a great opportunity to widen your network because, for example, if you join a society, they might have to do events or they might want to bring external speakers in. And that's where you get involved. And you could potentially use these connections afterwards by reaching out to that person and say, for example, I was in this society. We reached out to you back then. I'm now looking for a job. Perhaps would you be willing to assist me? And it's always good to have this starting point. And I think the other thing that was very essential in my degree, and is also something that you should try to do from perhaps your final year of study, is to try and do your applications early on. It's much better when you have time. I do understand that a degree might be quite stressful, but if you have a bit of time, it's always good to do some applications even before you graduate, because there are some organizations that hire in advance, and that removes a lot of stress if you manage to secure something even before you graduate. So I think the skills that I gained from a law degree that I found most useful were the ones that you can see on your screen, but a lot of them you will notice are also transferable skills. So for example, organization, you can get this skill no matter what degree you study, because you will see that sometimes it's not very easy to manage a heavy workload and other commitments that you might have. And it prepares you really well for the workplace when you learn to work under pressure and you learn to prioritize your tasks. Then in a law degree, you have some opportunities to exercise your negotiation and public speaking skills. You might have some debating opportunities or some mooting competitions. And I found that quite dreading at the beginning, but it's a very good chance to get up there, and you need to have an argument in your head and present that in a very clear and concise manner. Research as well, of course, is essential to a law degree, but there are so many other degrees out there that you will need to do some research, and it's very good because university prepares you for that. And then you will see that in many jobs you will need to be able to do some either a basic online research, or even to know how to use your resources and where to find these resources to get very up-to-date and accurate information that someone might ask you to give them. Then teamwork and communication, as I said, this is also something I developed from my participation in a society. But because you have to work with so many people, including your tutors and other kids in your class, it's very important that you learn how to communicate and how to work well with others. And this is something that is very present in mostly every type of job that you will do. And I will talk about this, how it comes into my current role later on as well. Problem solving and critical analysis are very essential skills to any type of legal work you might undertake. It's very common that when you get a case, you need to be able to separate the information and the detail that is not very useful to that which is essential, because this is what guides you to then go on and do your research and get the information that you might need to represent a client. So the law degree really prepares you well for being able to have this critical view, to analyze a scenario, analyze the case that you have before you, and then be able to say, okay, this is useful, I need to go and investigate that, or actually, no, I don't think this detail is very necessary. So I think, yes, these skills are the benefit of doing a law degree, because they prepare you really well if you want to follow a career that's in law. But there are so many other degrees as well, which can provide you with most of these skills as well. So for me, the way I transitioned from a law student to a paralegal, I was quite focused on my area of law that I was interested in from the beginning. So I was very interested in criminal law, and I noticed that there weren't a lot of opportunities presented at my university for a career in criminal law. There tended to be more big commercial firms that would come on campus and speak to us about their work. So at the beginning, I found it a bit difficult because I didn't know anyone here that could help me with a job in the criminal law, and I also didn't get the help that I really wanted from my university. So what I did is I started doing my research online, and I found out that there were many firms, even small criminal firms, and some of them, they did have some information on how you could potentially do a work experience with them, but some of them didn't. And I found one that was in London, and I recalled that they had come on campus at some point and had given a very brief presentation, even though it wasn't for their criminal department, it was for another department in their firm. So I just said, okay, I'll try my luck here. And I sent them an email and I said, hi, my name is Christina, I'm a student here. I know you came to our campus. I would be very interested in doing some work experience with you. I can't see anything of your website, but I was just wondering if that's available. And in fact, they did come back to me and they said, yes, for sure, you could do that. The work experience was unpaid, but at that moment it didn't matter because it was something for me to put on my CV, and it was only a 2 weeks internship. And it was, I would say, this was the first solid step for me to actually go on and start my career. And one tip I would give you, aside from the very important tip, which is not to be afraid to reach out, even if you don't see something visible there, is that if you are lucky and you get something and you manage to secure a work experience of any kind, keep notes. And for me, that was important because you might come across very interesting cases, things that you do at the time, which you might actually not remember when you're doing applications. So if you keep a very short diary and say, I did this, I did that, I worked in this case, no, without, not necessarily by naming the case, but just setting out a background in what you did, that's very useful for if you have an interview later on. Because if someone asks you, oh, what did you do there? It's very easy for you to have a record and go back and remind yourself and present that to the interviewer as well. And the one thing to remember is that, especially with a career in law and to become a paralegal, for example, it's very difficult to get the first experience. But once you do that, it becomes easier and easier. So you need to remember to not be afraid to reach out to people and show that you're very interested in doing what you want to do. And just remember that that's the way everyone started, and that's the only way you're going to get somewhere. So don't feel shy. Don't feel like you're the only person who's doing that. Do your research, reach out to firms, and I'm sure somehow you're gonna manage to get even a work experience like that, and eventually a role. So just as an overview, there are lots of different pathways for joining the legal profession. It's not just the option of becoming a very big lawyer. So first of all, the traditional pathways that you could either do a law degree, as I did, but you could also do a non-law degree and then follow on and do the PGDL, which was known as GDL up until, I think, last year. And this is essentially a conversion course that will provide you with all the skills that you need to have to transition into a legal career. So even if you're not sure, even if you think, yeah, maybe I would be interested in becoming a lawyer, but there's also something that has your interest at the moment, it's never too late. You could do something else that you're interested in. You could convert afterwards. And to be honest, I've seen many cases where recruiters actually really appreciate that as well, because you have a dual background, you have more knowledge. Then if you're really focused that you want to enter the legal profession, you need to think if you want to be a solicitor or a barrister. So the main difference is the barrister mostly goes to court, the solicitor does more paperwork, they're more involved with the client from the beginning, and then they instruct the barrister. So for example, if someone really loves public speaking and negotiation, and you like having your own independent schedule, perhaps a barrister would be a better fit. But if you like to take your time, read more information, be more in touch with the law and speak to the client, then maybe you would like to become a solicitor. Then depending on what you want to do, it will either have to do the SQE, that was previously the LPC, I will speak about this in a second, or the BPTC, which is for the barristers. And then following on from that, you will do your applications for a training contract or a pupillage, but these are quite difficult to get. So that's where, for example, the paralegal role comes in, or the legal assistant and legal researcher role comes in, because it doesn't have to be a training contract that you do. If you're finding it difficult to qualify, or if for some reason you even feel that you want some more time before you qualify, there are lots of other opportunities and other roles for you to enter the legal profession. So for example, a firm might need a legal assistant or someone to do more research for them, and that will be the legal researcher. And sometimes it's easier to get a role like that, but in fact it could give you way more experience than a training contract. And then even if you would like to do something that's in a legal environment but not 100% legal, you could join a law firm in their human resources department, or you could become a secretary and offer support, or you could even join them in their finance department. So this would offer you experience in kind of both sectors, but without really being law focused. So just to give you a brief overview, the solicitor's qualifying exam, that's what you need to do if you want to become a solicitor. So this used to be the LPC. It got replaced this September, and the LPC still applies for some people that had their application secured from before, but I believe that for all of you, if you want to become a solicitor, this will be the exam that is applicable. So this is a bit better than the LPC in that it allows you to access the legal profession more easily. It has lower fees, and it's not as strict. It's not necessarily a one-year university course like the LPC used to be. So the requirements for the SQ is you can have a degree in any subject. It doesn't have to be law, or sometimes you won't even have to have a degree. It could be an apprenticeship that you've done. After that, you need to do and pass 2 exams. It's the SQE1 and the SQE2, and the difference is one focuses more on skills, the other one focuses more on legal theory. And the good thing about that is that you don't have to do this at the same time. You can do one exam, you can take your time to work a bit, I think, and then do the second one. But I've included the link for all this information at the end, so you will be able to go on there and see and check for yourself. And then you also need 2 years of qualifying work experience, and this can be done, some can be done before your SQE, some can be done during, some can be done after. And then once you've passed the exams and you've done your 2 years qualifying work experience, and you also pass the character and suitability requirements, then you can qualify, and that's how you become a solicitor. There are also some other routes to qualify. I am aware that Silex is also a way in which you can qualify. I'm not very familiar with the qualification, but the link is on the screen if you want to go and have some more information. I understand that it's a training which combines working with studying, and it's also more flexible, and it allows you to qualify while focusing more on training. So do have a look at that as well. I think it's important to know that there isn't only one option. There are other options as well, and sometimes we are unaware of those. So have a look at the websites and just familiarize yourself with them. So as a paralegal, I'll just speak about my role. It really depends from firm to firm and from which department you work in. But usually a paralegal, what we do is we provide support to solicitors. So you're there to work within a bigger team. You're there to help them with administrative stuff, but also legal stuff. They do require that you have legal knowledge. And you're actually a very important person, because when everyone is busy, they still have so many tasks that are important and need to be done on time, and they will rely on you to do do that. So these tasks, for example, could be you might have to prepare bundles to take to court. So you could look through documents, make sure that all the documents are relevant and they're in the same case. Tab the documents, for example, number them. So just a lot of administrative stuff. But you could also have a relationship with the client. So if you're working, for example, in a small criminal firm, or not criminal, it could be any type of law, they might ask you to interview a client and take their instructions and just note that down and then run it past the solicitor. It's very frequent that you will be attending meetings and take notes of the meetings, and that's useful because you become acquainted with what's discussed in there, and then if you read it over, you get a lot of information for the case. So you're very involved in the case, which is what is very interesting about this role. There's a lot of opportunity for you to do different tasks, and there's a lot of variety, so it's never a boring role. It could be a stressful role in that you need to learn how to manage your priorities, and that's why organization is very important. But it becomes a habit, and you learn how to prioritize, you learn how to say no to certain tasks and how to figure out what needs to be done more urgently. The good thing about being a paralegal is that you can learn how to apply your legal skills and your knowledge into what you're doing, and you get to work with people from different departments, different organizations. For example, you might have to liaise with a court, you might have to liaise with a witness, you might have to call people to get information from them. So it's never boring. There's always lots of things to do, and you're dealing with different people, which makes it very interesting. And that also helps you apply your communication skills. And then you might occasionally, if you have the language skills, you could also be asked to do some translation. You would be asked to make sure that all the deadlines for important projects are kept somewhere and are organized and everything is done on time. You need to keep track of applications that you might need to submit to court. And of course, you always have support from other people in the team. So it's a very good position for you to start from if you want to transition into a more senior role in the legal career. But it's also a very interesting career on its own. And for some people, it's very rewarding, and it's more than fine to keep being a paralegal because it's very interesting. Okay, so my advice to you after everything I've said and everything I've explained, and if I could look back into my degree and all my experience, is I would say, of course, start by making a LinkedIn profile. It's fine that you might not have done so many things and not have a lot of experience. Put everything that you've done on there. Speak to your school. Someone might be able to review that and give you tips. It's very interesting to sometimes put your interests in there, because I've heard of lots of cases where people have reached out to someone senior on LinkedIn and they've had a common interest and they bonded over that, and then that helped them get a job. So make your profile, seek some advice, and then go on LinkedIn and search for profiles of firms or companies that you might know. Just type in their name, then that will show up other companies or firms that could be similar, and it's good for you to go and research, and it will show you any job opportunities that they might have available. You can of course straight away search for a job, and LinkedIn is a very helpful tool. But aside from that, I would say do your research online. Start by just typing very simple stuff like, I don't know, law firm in this location specializing in this, or company looking for a lawyer. And this will bring up so many jobs. And I would say try to be open-minded, because there could be a job that doesn't meet your requirements completely, but it could be a stepping stone for you. So you could take a job that's at a location that's not very convenient, for example, but you could do that for a very short term, and then after that it will open up a lot of doors for you to do what you're actually interested in. Keep an eye out for sample cover letters and CVs on their internet. There are lots of websites that offer these, and they're very helpful because you can use them as a template for you to do your application. Try to speak to your school about any opportunities they might have, any collaborations they might have, and if there's someone there who can help you with applications. Get every opportunity you have to develop important skills. So if there's any society, if there's any group, if there's something extracurricular that you could do and you have the time for that, where you could develop your networking, communication, any type of skills, then I think it's very good to get involved in that, because you can showcase that when you speak to recruiters and when you're looking for a job. Also, keep an open mind about the people that you know. You might think, for example, that you don't know anyone who's a lawyer or who's in the legal profession, but perhaps if you start thinking about it, you might know someone that's working in a similar company and could introduce you to someone else. And don't be afraid to reach out. I would say this is the most important thing. Don't be shy. I was shy, and for a long time it doesn't work out for you, but you need to put on your guard, message people, and there's always going to be help available for you. No one is going to say, I don't want to help someone else, because 90% of the time, that's how they got to be where they are, and they're always willing to help. And I would say be focused on what you want to do, but at the same time, keep looking out for other opportunities. It's always good to have your goal in mind, but sometimes we need to do a detour to get to where we want to be. So it's always good, and any experience you can get is usually always helpful. And now, in terms of getting a job more easily or strengthening your university application, try to see if there's any internship or volunteering opportunities. There are lots of organizations that deal with human rights, for example, housing, employment, lots of things that you might be interested in. And they're always looking for help. So you could just email them and say you're a student, you have, I don't know, this amount of time available, you would like to help out. And that will really help you in your CV. And it could also help later on. And yeah, I think if you do all that, if you keep being proactive, if you keep an open mind, it will help you find your passion, and eventually I'm sure you're going to achieve what you want to achieve. You just have to be determined, proactive, and not be shy. And this is just my list of resources for everything I've spoken about. Most of it will have the information about the courses that I spoke about, for example. Some of them you can also find firms and research them, and then through that you can find opportunities. So yeah, have a look at all of these, and just in addition to your regular internet search.